Hello everyone, welcome to the Roker Rapport. I'm joined once again today by the usual suspects. Gav, how you doing, Gav?
Pissed off. Could be worse.
Cool. Callum, how you feeling?
Pretty deflated, Callum's to be honest, yeah.
Jim, what about you, mate?
Yeah, I'm alright.
Yeah.
Pissed off.
Tom, how you feeling?
Apathetic.
Apathetic, oh, big word. Big words. So, you're joining us almost immediately after a defeat to Manchester City, 2-0. I can't say any of us went into that game thinking we were going to win, but for some reason we are all unaccountably very angry in spite of that. It was disappointing for me to watch, and I imagine you lads felt the same. So what about you, James? What did you make of the match?
Well, I thought we actually started reasonably well, didn't we? We actually, to be honest, we played reasonably well, especially first half. I thought we harried them and we pressed. And Dong and Jones, I think, certainly had decent games. I thought Billy Jones is probably one of the best performances I've seen him have. I thought Dong covered a hell of a lot of ground. Defoe hits the post, and Barini misses a sitter on the rebound. I still don't know how he's missed that. Januzaj had a couple of good moments. I mean, he had three defenders on toast in the first half, didn't he? He looked absolutely brilliant. But it's the feeling of, as Tom said, it's the feeling of apathy around the place it's pissing me off. I think it's Moyes is kind of just sat there on the bench, not really doing anything. And you see Guardiola getting up and he's up on the touchline, he's getting involved, and I understand that's not everything, but it just seems to further prove this point towards his mentality and the lack of motivation in him and his motivation in the players. For me, he doesn't positively impact any games. The whole mood around the club at the moment is apathetic. I mean, people just seem to be resigned to relegation, and as soon as the first goal went in, it seemed like heads on and off the pitch just dropped. Moyes' post-match was fairly typical. I mean, he just got the feeling that he was maybe fine with the fact that it was just a narrow loss and we didn't get battered, and he just seems to be unambitious at the best of times. And I'm getting to the point where I'm almost done with him. I know we played Man City and we actually played quite well. So, I mean, maybe perspective's needed, but the general feeling of apathy around the whole club is gutting. I think Moyes transmits it to his players and the fans pick up on that. And the spirit that we've seen in past seasons that's kept us up, I can't see any of it. I don't know what you look.
Do you think that's like an inevitable build-up of?
I think so, mate. Yeah. I think there's just. I think Moyes' dour tone and he calls it realism, doesn't he? And people say, oh, it's good to have a manager who's realistic, but you need a bit of positivity, man. It's crap enough being a Sunderland fan because we get nothing to shout about. But when you've got a manager telling us how average and crap we are, I think we need more positivity, and I can't feel any of it at the moment.
Yeah, certainly. That's exactly how I feel. I think apathy. I like the way you said you were pissed off about the apathy, but yeah, if you notice, for me as well, I mean, I won't go too much into it because everyone obviously has their piece to say on it. But I noticed a point. There was a foul that wasn't given on. I can't quite remember who it was now. There was a foul that wasn't given for us, and it was like into the second half, and it had been happening all match. Do you know what I mean? Some of them were fair, some of them were, I think, just clear-cut wrong decisions from the ref. But there was a feeling of and a sound in the stadium, like a really nasty, sour atmosphere. Do you know what I mean? It felt for a moment there, to me at least, that it wasn't directed specifically at the referee so much as it was just at everything. Do you know what I mean? At the club, at the players, at the Man City players as well, at everything. It seemed like this collective anger. Do you know what I mean? And I mean, we'll touch more on this later, but we saw a lot of, again, bias television from Sky focusing on our fans leaving pretty much all the time. As soon as they come, I mean, I'm sure some of them were literally nipping to the toilet and the camera was on them, which was a concerning thing. We'll talk about that more later. For me, what I really take from that, what I think makes us all angry, is that we saw that sort of effort and that intent. So we started off with a sort of an industrious, positive outlook, like let's go out there. I don't know if it was because it was one of the bigger teams and they're thinking, oh well, we've got to do it now or never. I don't know what it was, but we started out really well, and that really is what makes it sting, isn't it? When I mean, it's bad enough when you see them just underperforming against a team like Man City, when you see them having the better chances, certainly not possession, but certainly the better chances, and more intent and more spirit seen, more courage even at the beginning. That's what really gets me. That's what really annoys me, that we can't continue that for 90 minutes. Do you know what I mean? Or we can't continue that for 60 minutes. Or potentially we can't continue that for like 43 minutes, I think it was, until they scored their first goal, wasn't it? So it's another really... I mean, no one expected to take anything from this. None of us sat there and thought, oh, well, we're going to come away with 3 points. But there was a general feeling of hope. Like, look, if we're going to do it, if we're going to prove we belong in the Premier League, then this is the calibre of team we have to beat, and this is the situation we find ourselves in. So let's go out there and do it. And I think they failed to do that today. Do you know what I mean? What do you make of it, Gav?
Yeah, I have to agree. I was there today, the game, and it was for a lot of it. I would say that, particularly in the first half, the crowd seemed to respond to the effort of the players. The first 5 minutes were pressed very high and got stuck in, and obviously when we do that, the crowd reacts. And we saw it against Leicester at the start of the season, or whenever it was, December, when we started like a house on fire, got into them, and we won the game. But the most important thing was that the players got the crowd on side. I do think there was an effort to do that today. I thought that they started with an intensity which, would hopefully spark some life into the crowd. But as the game wore on, and obviously we knew Manchester City were going to dominate us on the ball, it kind of sucked the life out of the stadium. And I imagine they do that quite a lot of teams where, they don't leave the home fans with a lot, really, because they're dominating the game. They never lose the ball. The way they just, go side to side with it can be monotonous at times, but in truth, the way they knocked it around the box and under pressure was great to watch in my perspective. But as a home fan, it does nothing for you, because you want to see your team bombing forward and attacking and getting at them. For me, though, I thought that there were a couple of standout performers. I thought Didier and Dong, again, was on his own in that midfield. It can't be easy playing alongside Dan Gibson when he's passenger like that, because, he's quite clearly a quality footballer, Gibson. He gets his foot on the ball and moves it well, but ultimately when you're playing for Sunderland, you need to be more than that, and he just doesn't look up to speed. And I'm kind of hoping that Kirchhoff can come back in soon and probably take his place, because I don't think he looks fit enough or ready enough or even capable at the minute. And Dong's performance was great. I thought that he covers a lot of ground anyways, but I thought today he just seemed to do it even more, and he was all over whenever we need him to be there. Larson worked hard, as he always does, but I thought he was poor again, if I'm honest. I don't think he was great. Billy Jones at right back, first half particularly, was outstanding, I thought. I like to see a full-back get forward and attack, and we've never really seen that from Jones. Today, he seemed to have a new lease of life. He got up there when he could, and seemed to have the beating of Clichy more than often than not. Was unlucky to score a couple as well. Other than that, I would say that our defence, our central defenders anyways, did all right for the main. But again, Aguero just saunters between the two centre halves, doesn't he? And it's far too easy. But again, that's why Sergio Aguero is one of the best players in the world. He finds reasons to exploit defenders and takes a nick. But yeah, first half we should have went ahead. I thought we were the better team in the first half. Not in terms of the standard of the football play. I just thought when we had chances, we did look like scoring. I don't think Manchester City actually had another chance until they scored, which kind of shows how well we'd press them. But ultimately, you can't maintain those energy levels for a full game. Once they scored their second, I think they scored in the 58th minute, something like that. So there was still well over half an hour to play. Once that happened, the game was gone. The game was totally gone. The players knew it, the fans knew it, hence why the ground did empty. Not straight away, but there were people who got up and left, and I think that's kind of where we're at now as a fan base. We are now so used to losing that we give up as well. It's kind of, we don't like to see the players give up. It's something we level at the players quite often, that they tend not to give their all. But then at the same time, it's rubbing off on the fans now. The fans, in the main, are just kind of resigned to defeat. We're 2-0 down. They know they're not getting back into it. Doesn't matter who we're playing. That could have been Hull. It could have been anybody else. Could be Middlesbrough. if we'd have been 2-0 down today, then against anybody, we all know that we weren't getting back into it, because we've seen it time and time again this season, particularly at home. The players just aren't good enough. That's half the battle. We were playing a team today who had Kevin De Bruyne sitting on the bench, and obviously we look at our bench and we've got like Kasri and Honeyman and players like that. We know we're on a different level to these guys, but at the same time, when you get chances like we had today, particularly on the set pieces where you've got to take at least one, which would have changed everything. And obviously Defoe hitting the bar is difficult. He's kind of took a pot shot and hoped that it would get on target, and he's hit it well. It's hit the post. Barini not burying the follow up is just criminal for me. I mean, at first I thought it's hard to judge really, and then I've seen the replays back a couple of times since I got home, and that's a sitter. That's an absolute sitter. And when you're in a position like we are, bottom of the league, you can't afford to miss chances like that. So ultimately, for me, we're still bottom. We're well adrift now. I feel Burnley is a must-win. Every game's a must-win, but Burnley is a must-win. We don't win that game, I think you can say bye-bye to the Premier League. And that's me done.
Fair enough. I'd agree with that. What do you make of it, Tom?
Like I said, apathetic. Everyone knew what was going to happen. Then it did happen. The way you gave that 40 minutes of promise or whatever, but as soon as the goal goes in, you know it's done. It's like the Man City, when they go a goal ahead, they're like, right, we don't need to do anything to these now because they've got nothing coming back at us. And as it proved, we didn't really lay a glove on them in the second half. And it was just too easy. And I know they are one of the best teams in Europe, but we didn't lay a glove on them, and everyone's accepted defeat. The managers accepted defeat, the players accepted defeat, the fans have accepted defeat. And I don't know where this turns around. We had last year, we had a bit of a collective spirit under Allardyce. He kind of created this siege mentality, whereas now it's Moyes he'd be very happy to, throw the players under the bus. He'll never take any responsibility himself. And I think he knows we're going down, and he's both powerless to stop it, and he just doesn't look like he cares. And it's sad. It's sad, really. There's no leaders on the pitch. There's no one geeing people up. I mean, you have John O'Shea as your captain, but I can't remember any time he's actually grabbed someone by the scruff of the neck saying they're not putting a shift in, and that's just it. There's no fight, no leadership, and it's just created this horrible, apathetic cloud over the club. Supporters aren't happy with management, board, and all that. And yeah, it's going to be. I don't think we'll beat Burnley. I think that'll be us done.
Fair enough. Well, moving on to the Twitter questions. On that note about Moyes, we've got one from John Kerr who's asking, what will it take for Moyes' remaining supporters to turn on him? Lose to Burnley, lose the next 5, or is he completely Teflon? What do you make of that, Callum? I'll pitch that one to you.
I think he is, for a lot of our fans, untouchable. I don't think a lot of fans will, come what may this season. I think if we don't win a game from now until the end of the season, I think a lot of fans will still be saying, well, this is kind of a free hit season for him. And I don't see it that way. I can understand where they're coming from in a sense, because there's a conflation really with our current position and the habit of sacking managers and repeating the same mistakes, and then it gives us a bit of a short-term boost, and then next season we're kind of in the same place, and people have sort of said, right, well, that's clearly because we haven't got any stability in our managers, and I can understand, and I agree in a sense that part of the problem is that we don't have a manager for years, and we just, we sack halfway through the season, and it provides a boost. But I think that just because we've sacked managers in the past doesn't mean that David Moyes is the right man now. It doesn't mean that now we've come to our senses, oh, look at that. Just so happens that we've also got the right manager. It's not a contradiction to say that we've sacked too many managers in the past, but that Moyes isn't doing a good enough job. those two statements are perfectly compatible. And for me, it just seems strange to defend Moyes by saying we've sacked too many managers in the past. What matters to me is he getting the most out of the players? Is he getting the best from what he's got? And for me, games like today, fair enough, Man City, obviously, you do look at it as sort of, right, well, did we expect to win? No. But the games like that this season where, against big teams, we have kind of lifted our levels. And, you always hear professionals say you don't need any motivation for the big games. The big games get you motivated in themselves. And I think that is the case, that we can put in a shift like we'd have against Spurs or Liverpool or, against City today where, we limited them and the first half was quite good. We gave ourselves a few chances, but then they dropped their levels against teams like Burnley I don't think fans will turn on him. I think ultimately you've just got to accept that people think that he is the solution to the problem and that everything that's happening this season is not his fault and that every player he signed this season has been forced upon him rather than a choice. And obviously every manager in the league would rather go out and sign better players than they can sign. But the reality of it is that that's our budget. These are the limits. He's the manager. He's working within the limits. So I personally don't like it when people say, oh, but, you can't judge him on it. He's made the decisions. He's signed the players, but don't judge him on it because he wants more money. Well, loads of managers want more money, but that doesn't mean that you can say, oh, well, I've made all the decisions. I'm getting paid to do this job quite well, and I'm working within the limits, but I don't agree with the limits, and therefore I'm not responsible. I don't think that can be said. So, I think he won't be blamed for anything, and some people will stick with him no matter what because they see him as a victim of the instability, not as someone who is sort of continuing it, and that's a very difficult thing to convince someone out of, I think. Yeah,
he can't whinge and say that team isn't his now because he's had long enough with them,
absolutely,
hasn't he? And he's
absolutely.
The signings he's brought in, all season I've been the first to try and back him and give him time because we're all desperate, aren't we, for this to work? And as Callum says, it just because earlier in the season he used a fantastic analogy of just because you're 30 and you should get married, you've got to settle down with the next one. You settle down with the right one, and the more and more I think about it, the more and more I think David Moyes isn't the right person, and it's just because I'm sick of not being myself. As a fan, I'm not motivated to watch Sunderland as much as I'd like. We watch them every week, and today I could have turned that off at 70 minutes. I'm never usually like that. I could have turned it off because I'm just at the moment I'm just thinking, we're just resigned to it. And I think next week against Burnley or the week after, whenever it is I think if we get beat against Burnley at home, it might turn into one of those Steve Bruce against Hull games where I think a lot of fans will turn. I don't necessarily agree with Callum and say that a lot of people will back him even if we lose every game. Surely they can't. Surely if we get beat against Burnley, or to be honest, if we don't win against Burnley, I think that'll have to be it for him.
I don't know, man. People have long memories. I agree with Callum. There is and always will be a core of the fan base that will not be able to see past all of the other factors. And who can blame them really when you are looking at this continuous cycle? In a way, they aren't wrong if they turn around and say, well, it isn't Moyes' fault. It might be Ellis Short's fault. Do you know what I mean? That's entirely possible and, in fact, quite plausible. More on that at a later date, though, really. Going back to the questions, I've got one for Gav, really, because I know he'd like this one. Why isn't Wabby Kazri being brought on before Jack Rodwell when we need to score?
Good question. I obviously can. You can tell just by looking at Kazri that there's obviously something not right because, well, first and foremost, he's not getting game time, or at least not enough to impact games. But the relationship between him and Moyes is obviously strained. There's something up there. There's a reason why he's not starting games. There's a reason why, even when Fabio Borini is playing as bad as he is, because I think we can all agree that he is playing absolutely awful.
Oh, yeah, terrible.
Even now, a player like Khazri, who admittedly is not top class, it's not like a case of where a player is out of the team and they become better. I don't think Khazri is top class. I don't think he ever has been. But he did show us enough in that run last season to at least suggest that he deserves to be given a run of games or at least some time to prove himself. Whether there's something gone on off the pitch with Moyes and Khazri, absolutely no idea. But that's for the media to address, I guess, is my next thing. I think that why aren't these questions being asked? Why is nobody asking David Moyes, like, why is Khazri on the bench all the time? Why is he not starting games? Is there an issue there?
There's some sort of you'd be screened, really, wouldn't you, by some sort of club official or something like that? There must be some reason. They don't want to damage relationships with the club.
I would assume so. I would assume that's the reason why.
Or is it Moyes? They're more concerned about damaging their relationship with Moyes than they are Sunderland. Because Sunderland could be in the Championship. They won't mind.
Well, possibly, but I suppose that's an issue within itself, isn't it? Yeah. Can they ask the challenging questions to the manager? Do they want to, and then risk his wrath?
I mean, the thing is, though, he constantly... I mean, he said it after the game today. When we've got the ball, we just don't have enough quality. Now, okay, if that's what you think, fair enough. But when you've got a player like Khazri on the bench, I think we can all agree that out of the squad of players that we've got in terms of providing, decent crosses into the box or decent passes, having a bit of vision, I think we can all agree that Khazri is one of the more gifted players in our squad. And so when you've got a player like that sitting on the bench, it's kind of this assumption that, well, he must be there for a good reason, like it's Khazri's fault or that he doesn't quite fit into the team or, doesn't fit into the formation or something like that. But it was the same with when, I know people don't like Jermaine Lens, but when Lens left in the summer, I was just like, why, if you're a new manager coming in, would you not put your arm around Lens and Khazri and Defoe and just say to them, look, you guys are going to be my attacking players. You're going to be very important if you want to be. If you want to be in my team, if you want to be very important, then that's what we're going to do. We're going to work out the way to get the best from the three of you, because that attacking three isn't bad. It's not a relegation attacking three, I would say.
No, it's not.
Why? Yeah. So I just don't understand why he can say there's no quality on the pitch. We've got a quality player on the bench. We've got another one out on loan, and like Gav said, no one calls him on it. It's very frustrating.
Yeah,
it is frustrating. I was just going to say how much he can't do any worse than Fabio Borini. Borini, he runs around. I'm almost banging my head against the wall just talking about him because he runs about a lot, but he just consistently misplaces passes. He offers fuck all apart from work rate to me. Honestly, he's the sitter. He's an absolute sitter in that first half. I don't care if the ball's spinning or if it's coming in quickly. It's an open goal from 6 yards out, and if you're a Premier League footballer, you should be finishing that. I can't see how Khazri can offer any less, really. Just give him a run. It can't get much worse, let's be honest.
Oh, that's true. I mean, I was going to say the same thing about Borini. Is it fair to say now for all of us then that enough is enough, and we sort of see why he never got an extended run in Liverpool's first team? Do you know what I mean? Like, when he was out on loan, when he was with us originally, he was here to prove a point, and then he was maybe slightly elated after we signed him permanently, and do you know what I mean? He was feeling a bit more positive about that. I mean, I remember he was always talking about working with mental coaches and visualising success and visualising scoring a goal. And it seems to me that he, I don't know, maybe he needs to hire his mental coach back or something. Maybe he had a bust up with him, because ever since he stopped visualising scoring, he stopped fucking scoring. Do you know what I mean? So that might
but has he scored that much, Damo? He hasn't scored that many goals, has he? I said this about 6-7 weeks ago on the pod. I said, if he hadn't scored emotional goals, in the sense against the Mags at Wembley, goal against Palace last year, which nicked us a point. If he hadn't scored those type of goals, I think the fans would have turned on him a long time ago.
But you see, for me, it's not just the goals that he's, the emotional goal. Although you get this you do have this attachment to him because of the nature of the goals that he scored. But at the same time, he scored goals in like big moments that have required someone who's clearly got a lot of self-confidence, clearly got a bit of quality. I mean, the way he kind of, took that penalty at Chelsea and took the penalty in the Tyne derby in the second 3-0. He clearly has ability, and he's clearly a very confident player. I think his confidence is very low at the moment. I don't think he's happy. I don't think he feels valued. And a lot of people, might say, oh, well, tough and, get over it and all that sort of stuff. And I agree that, he should be doing more. His attitude's not good enough at the minute. Even at half time, he was, I saw that he was, as the second half was about to kick off, he was laughing and joking with Aguero. And while, that's not terrible, it's not awful, but when you're in the kind of form that he's in, and when we're losing 1-0 and you're where we are in the table and stuff, you look at that and you think, is it really the right time to be having a bit of a laugh and a joke, or should you just be focused on the second half? But I don't agree with people who say that he's completely useless, that he's got no quality, because I think we have seen quality. I think just at the minute it's an issue of confidence and him just not being happy, and it comes across on the pitch.
Needless to say, though, regardless of why it is, regardless of what's affecting him, it's certainly most important to completely ignore that anyway and replace him, because if it's not working, it's not working.
It's not good enough. It's not good enough at the minute. I'll freely admit that.
It's just a shame
if we can replace him, we should.
But yeah, then maybe that would be an argument for Kasri, or indeed we noticed today as well, or I noticed, and it also bothered me. I think something we've been crucially and vitally missing from the squad. Obviously, Lee Cattermole pretty much hasn't been here. It feels like he got sold or something like that. And it doesn't seem to be coming back anytime soon. He might not even take any part in this season, really. We don't know. But we need bite in midfield. Or just on the team, we need bite and we need aggression, and we need someone to set a standard, set a tone against a team like Manchester City. And that's something that I was hoping to see with Gooch being fully fit. I was hoping to see him involved for that sort of aggression. Do you know what I mean? And I'm sure Moyes would turn around and say, or he would turn around and argue and say, well, I went for the level heads or the experience of Larsson and Gibson and things like that. But how much did they offer? I mean, Larsson was lucky not to get booked within the first 30 minutes. And Gibson, I mean, where was he? Do you know what I mean? From all accounts, he was taken off as a precaution. Maybe he had a niggle very early on in the game, and that's what stopped him from performing properly. But, I mean, he just... At times with Gibson, I saw him throwing his hands up in the air when the forwards were asking for the ball. Do you know what I mean? He's supposed to be like this. He's supposed to have this dead-eye pass. And you're the only person that's going to pass that ball, mate. And you've got Didier Ndong, Jermaine Defoe, both waiting up there. I know, they're surrounded, and Januzaj as well. They're all surrounded by Manchester City players, but it doesn't matter. You're supposed to pick out the pass for that. And that really annoyed me about Gibson. I was just left thinking, why not have that? Why not give that player? I'm not talking about bringing in the young lads to play just for the sake of it. I'm talking about Gooch, who we know and we've seen perform and get a rise out of the crowd and get a rise out of the team. But he wasn't even anywhere near the bench. That's something that really annoyed me. But moving on beyond that, I suppose we'll go to a few more questions, or at least one or two more questions. Here's an interesting one, and I'm not entirely sure how to answer this, so I'll ask Gav. Bateman asks, what's the most appropriate way for fans to voice their feelings about what's happening to the club? What would you say?
God, traditionally...
Exactly, because it's not going to be like, we can't say... Obviously, we're not going for the whole boycotts or the walkouts or anything like that.
No, we
don't
want to be like Mags. We don't want to be Mags. Don't get any bed sheets out.
We're not that sort of club. So, but therein lies the validity of that question, because it feels sometimes as a Sunderland fan that you are sort of, your hands are a bit tied. Do you know what I mean? If you complain that things are going wrong, people will quickly stand up and try and shout you down, and you can understand both sides of it. But it is very difficult at times to come across with any kind of pessimism or worry as a fan. So what would be the best way of dealing with that, do you reckon?
Is there a best way, really? Because I don't think you can. I don't think you can actually nail it down, can you? I mean, protests. What would you be protesting about? I mean, as shown by the amount of people who left the game early today, I think people have just given up. People have just got sick of this whole situation. You know, sick of us losing every week. Sick of us not putting up a fight when we're behind. Just sick of watching the brand of football and watching a group of players who look like they don't know each other. People are sick. So, in truth, I think that people have accepted relegation already. So, what good's protesting going to do in that sense? You know, if people start protesting outside the ground, what would they even be protesting about?
Yeah,
sure.
True.
Well, we know he wants to sell up. So, you know, I don't think it's the same as when Bob Murray was here and people kind of protested outside the ground in a hope that he would sell because it got to a desperate stage. It's not like that now. It's difficult, isn't it? I mean, Newcastle fans are famed for it. Obviously, when they don't like something, they make sure that people know they don't like it. Quite often, more than not, though, they do the wrong things as well. The minority of the fans, which is kind of turned protesting into a joke kind of thing, hasn't it? Because, you know, the daft funerals for stadium names and bed sheets and all the rest of it, like, that's kind of put a dampener on what you know people can actually do. Because, say for instance, we as a site, for instance, thought, right, we've had enough, we're going to organise a protest outside the ground after this game, or we're going to organise a walkout because of whatever reason. It would laugh it down. It's just not accepted anymore. So I guess the only thing that you can do to express your displeasure or whatever you're experiencing as a fan is to just try and do it peacefully and try and
don't kick off no matter what happens. Don't hit them.
It is difficult, isn't it? Because what on earth can you do, really? Like I say, any serious attempt at doing a fan protest, I don't know, at Moyes being manager, for instance, that would be shouted down because, as shown in the poll we actually ran on the site this week, majority of people don't want to see him go. They want to see him stay. Bizarrely, that in my opinion, but that is what the majority of fans who we polled thought, that David Moyes should stay on as manager. So, in which case, something like that just wouldn't work. We know that the chairman wants to sell. So, what more can we do? We can't go out and find buyers for him. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We've just got to sit tight and hope that it happens.
Suffer in silence.
Pretty much, we've got to now just kind of sit back and hope that this useless bunch can do something
this
about
whole
it.
thing that just blow over. It's going to be fun. Well, yeah, I mean, okay, moving slightly on then. So that's Man City behind us. Dust yourselves off, lads. It's okay, take a breath. So we've got 2 weeks on Saturday. We're playing Burnley. Now, as Gav said earlier, this is a must-win game. If ever we've had one, especially after today, this is a must-win game. If we don't win this game, the chances of staying up are incredibly low, and I mean, confidence will be at an all-time low on the terraces and in the dressing room. And I imagine, hopefully, in the manager's office, I hope he's not sitting there and just going, cleaning his nails and thinking, this is all good. This was all going to happen. It was destined to happen. It's not my fault. I haven't got any money. But Tom, we've got Burnley coming up. What do you reckon? What do you make of that? Do you think we're going to go all out? Do you think we need to go all out?
No, I think we'll probably draw or something like that. The fourth time we get to play Burnley in a season, who'd have thought it, I think.
Yeah, lucky.
We were saying before about setting the tone on the pitch in terms of aggressiveness and whatever. That should come from the manager. Like, that kind of attitude's got to come from the manager. You can't just rely on one of your players. He's got to set the tone. And against Burnley, yeah, we need to go out and win it, but I don't really see what he's going to do differently. He's never showed at any point he's been here that he's got a plan B. I think he's kind of just throw the players out there. If we win, we win. If we don't, we don't. And it's not my fault, so don't come crying to me about it. I don't see what he'll do differently. He won't change personnel. He won't change them in like key areas, like dropping Barini or maybe chucking Kazri in. That won't happen. I don't know where Gooch is. I don't know if he's going to be fit. Kershaw probably won't play because, I don't know, probably get knocked over in a breeze or something. All his legs will shatter. Yeah, it's looking pretty bleak, and Burnley know how to play football. They know how to stay compact, and yeah, you're still losing on the road or whatever. But they're not easy. They're not easy to beat. As we've tried 3 times this year, and we've not beaten them at all. And the 2 games at Turf Moor, we might as well have cigars out playing because we're just like so easy to play against. All they need to do, keep compact, and then just let us have that 20 minutes where we might blitz them, but we won't score, and then just wait for the anxiety to kick in. Then you score a goal, that's it, done. Because this team will not come back, and the manager doesn't know how to change it. His subs today, that's why when you take over a new team on Football Manager, but you haven't really done your research. So anytime you take a player off, you just find the exact position on the bench and you put them back in. So like Gibson for Rodwell and Kazri with 5 minutes to go in the game, 2-0 down for Januzaj. No thinking, no how could I switch this tactically and match what City are doing. It's just like for like, just get on, doesn't matter, do whatever. And you're going up against the master tactician of Pep Guardiola. You'd think maybe himself would try and up his game, but this guy's checked out and he's just waiting for us to drop. And I don't think if we go down, I don't think he'll stay with us. I think he'll try and jump ship and say it wasn't my fault, governor, that he's been doing all season. So yeah, doesn't look good for the Burnley game. We say it's must win, but every game's bloody must win, so we probably won't win.
You say that about Moyes though, just quickly, about him not staying or anything like that. But I'm sure, the transfers he's made and the constant chat about going on a journey with younger players and all, as dodgy as that sounds, going on a journey together. Do you know what I mean? And I always pictured that to mean not necessarily. Surely he wasn't convinced that he was going to buy that calibre of player, be dipping into the free market that often. And I think, as we've all said, he's lying a little bit when he says, oh, well, I was offered more. Maybe he was offered a little bit more, but I don't think his limitations are actually that far removed from what he'll have been told, because you can't really operate a business like that. He would have known, do you know what I mean? The other managers would have known. They would have told him before he took the job. Other people would have known and said, look, you can't do this without, if he's really that bad, he'll short on his promises. But, yeah, so for me, I don't think he is going to jump ship. It feels to me like he's been expecting it from the very beginning. This was always like it doesn't matter because I'm tied down to, a 3-4 year contract. So I'm going to build this team up. Do you know what I mean? I don't think he minds the idea of a championship thing. Maybe that's what he needs to get an injection into his career. Do you know what I mean? I'm just, it's all speculation, of course. But
he's... At the moment, David Moyes he'll never get he wouldn't get another Premier League job, that's for sure. We're here to help rebuild his career, essentially. And he's not doing a very good job at that. The only thing I can see, he'll only leave, I think, if we get a new owner. At the present moment, I think he'll want to see out his contract, so he'll want to stay as long as possible, because I think he can almost sense himself that he's maybe... he's lost touch with maybe the modern game. He's failed in his last few jobs, and when he was in inverted commas successful at Everton, it was a long time ago, and football's moved on a lot. Footballers have moved on. They're different beings now. I think maybe his old school mentality won't wash with some of these quite fragile egos.
It's not just that though. It's like when he was manager at Everton, you could go and get Tim Cahill, like one of the form players in the Championship, for £4 million. Phil Jagielka, similar.
Yeah.
And now, if you want a form player in the Championship, you're looking at 10 million plus.
Money we don't have.
And so he's sort of saying, I don't have the money, but at the same time, he's limiting himself by saying, I'm only going to shop in England, or in Britain, I'm only going to try and buy young players, English players, based in the Premier League. And so he ends up going and getting players who are just cast-offs from other Premier League clubs. Like, there's no like ingenuity to sort of say, right, well, the conditions at the moment aren't conducive to me going and buying British players who are in form, desirable or anything like that. He limits himself and then complains about limitations. It's like, why on transfer deadline day when we needed pace or we needed a striker, do you not say, well, do you know what? It's not happening with Ajoa. We've got the money there. Why don't we go to one of our continental targets who wouldn't matter? Oh, yeah, that's right, because we don't have any continental targets. Because, so it reeks of, all right, David, should we start scouting these continental targets? Well, do you know what? Actually, it's a nice day and the beer garden shuts in a few hours. So I think, let's just throw in a bid for Gibson and drinks are on me. It's like, I don't... in
the pub with Gibson if that was the case.
Yeah, I just, this is a man who every time we lose a game blames it on the fact that we've not got as good of players as the opposition. Like Burnley, our opponents, to go back to obviously the issue, they are the antithesis of that, of not having the individual players. They maybe don't have the individual talent of some teams, but as a team, as a unit, they're organised, they know their jobs, and they're keen to prove themselves, and they're also keen to impress the manager and to work for the manager. Now, I think he's had long enough to turn this group of players into a reasonably organised outfit. When you look at that, when you look at our defenders like Oviedo, Jones, Shea, Kone, even if O'Shea's not in there, like, I don't understand how it can be as sort of ragtag and disorganised as it is, particularly when like the defence hasn't had, like the midfield's been injury ravaged, fair enough, but the defence hasn't had that many injuries or that many suspensions, and we've got 3 right backs, for God's sake. Like, pick one and just go with him. He blames it too much on like I said, the individual quality of each player. Like last season, Leicester won the title. If we can't use that to show that it's not necessarily about the individuals, it's about constructing a team that gets the best from what you've got. I'm not saying we can win the title, but I'm saying that with these players and with this squad, there's not a chance we should be as poor as we are. Yeah, I just and Burnley, if they do their research, I think they will. And if they stick to their game plan and frustrate us, they could easily beat us. People pointing to their away record and stuff. For me, yeah, fair enough, they're not as good away from home. But I think Sean Dyche will look at this fixture and think, well, do you know what? We only need to draw. We don't need to win. But I think he'll be fancying his chances, and why wouldn't he?
Of course he will. And you hear a record like, Burnley haven't won the road all season. That reeks of they'll break that record against us. We always do that. Find a striker who hasn't scored in 40 games, put them up against us, and he'll score a brace. It's just it's typical Sunderland. But quickly back to Moyes, I think his main mistake, or his most recent mistake, maybe, was he should have brought someone in January to help Defoe. Sam Allardyce did it with Ndoye, who was largely crap, but he served a purpose. He was a player who allowed us to get up the pitch. He was a target there, and he retained the ball. He wasn't glamorous, but he was someone. At the moment, he just seemed to he put all of his eggs on Ajoa, and when that didn't happen, he thought, oh well, fuck it, I'm not. That's it, and there's no one else out there. Surely surely our scouts have found another big striker somewhere in Europe we could have got in, because we were desperate for someone to fit that mould, and the lack of ambition to go and get someone, I think that ultimately will send us down.
I mean, to be honest, sorry about that. Yeah, no, I think
end podcast.
Yeah, it's just over. I'm just sick of this. I kicked the mic off the desk. I'm done. No, I think in reality now we're looking at. I mean, it's difficult for all of us, I suppose. It's going to be difficult for all Sunderland fans, but it's fair to say, I mean, just the despondency of us and I'm sure everyone really on Weir's side. It's come to a head now, isn't it? It's finally here. Almost finally here. That's what I feel like. We've been talking about having given up and things like that. I mean, we're normally sitting there a couple of months ago, having given up, but then something turns it around. Do you know what I mean? Just after the new year, we get something and it becomes a little bit more positive. And it seems like it's one step forward, two steps back. Do you know what I mean? Because this isn't the first game that we've been in where we've said, oh, well, for the opening 20 minutes, Sunderland looked, insert positive here. Do you know what I mean? And that keeps happening. So, for me, the biggest concern, or rather the biggest indicator of what Moyes isn't accomplishing as a manager is consistency. Because it seems like he gets something right. He must get his team talk before a match right, or something like that. He set them up, and clearly he drills them well. But it seems like he doesn't focus on longevity, almost like he hopes they can steal the game. Like, right, we will do this, we'll sit back, we'll just get it to the foe, and, do you know what I mean, somehow we'll snatch victory. And that, it's completely, like you said, Callum, it's like he's losing, or it's like he doesn't have touch with that sort of, or the way football's played now. Do you know what I mean? I'm stumbling over myself here trying to explain it, but to be honest with you, I'm just wound up. I honestly expected to have more from today.
I agree with you about consistency, because obviously when Allardyce took over last season, we had a bit of a boost when he first took over, quite a bad December, and then in January we played Man City, and there was that game where we lost, but we gave them a really good game. We actually controlled a lot of the second half. They had to really scrap and be a bit dishonest to really get out of it unscathed. And when I left that game, I was thinking, if we play like that until the end of the season, we'll stay up. And the new signings really impressed. And then from that point forward, I mean, it wasn't like we won every game or played well in every game, but there were games where we didn't play well, but we got a point, or we didn't play well, but we got back into it, and maybe we lost like 1-0, but there was always like I was never feeling like there was no way that we had enough to even sort of compete in the game for 90 minutes. So that was the big thing as well. We would put performances in for 90 minutes. And with Moyes, it's always half an hour, 45 minutes, good first half, bad second half, bad first half, good second half. And I just think that we should be able to acknowledge that by this point in time, we should have an idea of what formation best suits the squad, and we should be able to at least go into games and look like, even if we're not going to win, that we're going to draw it, and we're going to build on a result and move forward from that result to the next game and take that form into the next game. And with this squad, you just feel like every time we gain a little bit of momentum, it just evaporates as soon as it's come, and that for me has to fall at least partially on the manager.
After the Crystal Palace game, that should have been a turning point. 4-0 up at half time. You should build on that, but we've not scored a goal.
Turns out it was just Patrick Van Aanholt being there.
It's the thing. We laugh at it, and it's become so Sunderland. But you don't just go win a game 4-0 and then go back against a team that lost 6 out of 7 before they played us, and then they absolutely smashed us, and we haven't scored a goal since. And it's just, that's how you get relegated, I guess.
Well, lads, as fun as this has been, it's in God's hands now. Right, so thanks for joining us anyway. I'm sorry to completely depress you, but chances are if you're listening to this, you're a Sunderland fan and are already depressed. Well, we won't be playing a match again, as I said, until the 18th, so... but we will be back next weekend. We're going to have a little special episode just to fill up the time, and obviously because it's so important at this time, I suppose, it'll certainly be relevant by the time we play Burnley anyway. We're going to have a relegation running episode, so we'll be looking at the opposition's games, we'll be looking at our games, we'll have some predictions, things like that, and yeah, hopefully we'll have a bit of a laugh this time. But yeah, thanks for joining us. Don't forget you can subscribe on iTunes, and yeah, this is the Roker Rapport signing off.